Yesterday, Niclas Fullkrug was photographed limping out of Germany's training session with his arms around a couple of physios as well, so it's not a good picture for West Ham fans. But last night when Nagelsmann was quizzed about it in his press conference, he played it down as much as he could. He suggested that Fullkrug was simply a doubt ahead of their Nations League game this evening. However, I'm going to take that with a pinch of salt because I feel that's what Nagelsmann has to say. First of all, he's going to want to keep the Netherlands guessing because Fullkrug started in their previous game against Hungary and scored the opener in that one as well. So he's going to want to keep his cards close to his chest, but mainly for reason number two, which is there's not really any news as such yet. And last night, a top source informed Sean Whetstone and ex-West Ham employee that Fullkrug has left the German training camp and he's on his way back to West Ham for assessment and possible treatment. So the good news for West Ham here would be that it's simply a precaution. He's picked up a knock in training, he's returning to West Ham, and he may be available for Fulham at the weekend. Of course, there is the complete opposite end of the scale, which is it's a bad one, and he could be out for a number of months. But to stress, nobody knows just yet. He will be getting assessed by West Ham, possibly today, and I'm sure we will hear very quickly as to the outcome of that assessment by West Ham. But fingers crossed, it's not a bad one, because I think we need this one to work. I'll be honest with you, when I seen it, I was very disheartened. Oh no, this is just typical. This is our luck. And I'm a little bit worried / nervous because I feel like there's a pressure on West Ham to make this transfer work. 10 signings we made in the summer. I think this is the one that we need to work out. It's not the most expensive. Other players are looking really good at the minute. The defence was a massive issue last season. But because of what's going on at West Ham for quite some time, and we're talking years now, I think we need Fullkrug to work. Not necessarily because it's Niclas Fullkrug, but just because it's a striker. We've been screaming out to get this position sorted for a number of seasons. We've got it wrong. We've lost a lot of money. We need this one to work. I think Tim Steidten needs this one to work. And if Lopetegui can get it to work, then we'll do all right this season. But if he's injured, it's going to be a real kick in the nuts, I think, for this one. Now, the reason I think there's a little bit of pressure on Tim Steidten is because the other day we did a video. How do we judge Tim Steidten? What is success for Tim Steidten? And the question was asked by Josh, and everybody had different answers. But the gist I'm getting is a lot of people will be looking at Tim Steidten in regards to this Fullkrug purchase. First of all, we've got the Duran thing. We missed out on Duran. We decided not to pay for Duran and go for Fullkrug instead, and then use the money elsewhere. I don't think that's going to help. And the reason we know it's a Tim Steidten signing is because 13 months ago, we went after him with David Moyes as manager as well. And this has been confirmed by David Moyes. Our subscribers told me about it. I'll be honest with you, during the Euros, I was ignoring Moyes. And this isn't anything anti-Moyes or anti-West Ham. It was because he was commentating on Scotland. And a lot of the things he was suggesting as a pundit I found very hypocritical. He was criticising Clark for holding on to a draw, and he was criticising Clark for not making substitutions early. Now, whilst I agree with what Moyes was saying, it was difficult to listen to off the back of 4 years of David Moyes when he was possibly victim of doing those things as well. But regardless, so whenever Moyes was pundit, I was ignoring him as much as I could. So I missed him stating about Fullkrug, and a couple of subscribers said, hey, he's commented on it, so I went and had a look, and right enough he had. He was doing punditry in the studio of the Euros. It was a German game. Fullkrug again had played well, and Moyes was sitting there. Moyes basically said, I think I've made a mistake on that one. I missed out on him. He confirmed that he could have signed for Fullkrug, or certainly had the option to go and try and pursue Fullkrug, but he opted against it. Now, that's not the debate here. I'm not going to say Moyes was right, Moyes was wrong. That to me was confirmation that it was Tim Steidten that liked Fullkrug, that he was recommending Fullkrug to Moyes. Moyes said no. Then this summer we've gone and got him, so it feels like a Tim pick as far as I'm concerned. So I think there's a pressure on Steidten to get this one to work, because almost if the Guilherme one doesn't work out, you shrug and go, well, it was always a bit of a gamble, wasn't it? But I think that striker position, because it's been an issue for so long, I think that's the one that has to come true. Just like Lopetegui and Kilman. I think Lopetegui really needs Kilman to work out, and he's been fantastic so far. I feel like those are the two big transfers for each individual personally this summer. Now, hopefully, touch wood, it's good news, he's back for Fulham. I feel like that might be a bit of a stretch, but hopefully he's not out for a considerable period of time. I'll take that. If you said to me he's only going to miss a game or two, I'd take that right now, because I'm that worried it could be something serious. So what does this mean? What does this do for Lopetegui? Well, it forces his hand a little bit, because naturally the replacement would be Michail Antonio, because Antonio started the last game as well. However, he's away on international duty with Jamaica at the minute, and as we know, when Antonio returns from international duty, he's perhaps not the best. He perhaps needs a weekend off before he can get up and running again. Danny Ings hasn't been fancied by Lopetegui, although he has scored a hat-trick in international break. Granted, against Dagenham and Redbridge in a friendly when we won 5-0, but he's had time. Unlike Fullkrug and Antonio who've been away, Ings is the player on the training ground with Lopetegui at the minute, so he's got an opportunity to impress, although I'd be surprised if that was our solution. I think there's two players currently at the club that offer that solution, Kudus and Bowen. I know what the popular choice here will be, which is Kudus goes on the right and Bowen goes up front. I'm actually okay with either. I don't really have a particular one I want to see right now. I'll give you the alternative in a second. I'm sure you can work it out. But I think that would be the popular choice. Bowen goes up front, who I have to admit did look sharp as a striker for that 10-15 minutes he played for England the other night when he came on. Unlucky not to score. And he's done well for us in that position before. And the one thing that's like a bit of a comfort blanket for me in regards to Bowen performing as a striker is that when he played well as a striker under David Moyes, the football was hopefully different. Now, the first 3 games of this season, I would suggest it's not. I feel like I've been watching last season's West Ham just with different players. But the one against Man City, that game, and spells against Man City suggested this is what we're trying to do. We are going to try and play better. We're going to be playing a different style of football. And if we can do that, I think you might see an even better Jarrod Bowen up front. There's a lot of ifs and buts in that one, though. However, I feel confident that you get a good striker out of Jarrod Bowen. And it may not be an excellent one. Hopefully, he will go on to become that. But worst case scenario, I think you get a player that's decent up front. That would mean Kudus on the right hand side, and that's something I'd be more excited for other than Bowen up front. I'd be seeing Kudus unleashed, if you like, on the right. I think he would be. Cutting in on his left foot, yes please, I'd love to see that. The alternative is Kudus goes up front. Now, I've seen Kudus up front 5-6 games maybe. It's not loads, right? It's not loads. I used to watch Ajax. Don't watch Ajax anymore. I used to watch Salzburg. Don't watch Salzburg anymore. I go through these periods where there's a certain team I'll tune into occasionally throughout the season, and I'll just ditch them and pick up another team instead. But certainly Ajax, when Kudus was there, I like to watch them. And I'm convinced I've seen Kudus in a false 9 for Ghana at the World Cup. I haven't checked it. I possibly should have. But my brain tells me I have, and he scored an absolute banger playing that false 9 for Ghana at the World Cup as well. But I'm going to discard that one. That's subconscious information, maybe. But certainly for Ajax, I've definitely seen him as a false 9. And I know people will dismiss the Dutch League. I understand why. I'm not going to say you're wrong. But I've seen him playing it in the Champions League against Liverpool and Celtic or Rangers. I think it was Rangers. I'm sure they played both recently. I think it was Rangers I've seen him play again. It was a few years ago now, 3-4 seasons ago now. Kudus was false 9 against Rangers in the Champions League as well as Liverpool, and scored against Liverpool in the Champions League as a false 9. But when you look at him, forget what he's done in the past, just look at him as a player, his attributes, and you can see why he would work. His pace and his power, and he's good at holding the ball up, shielding the ball, trying to spin a defender. He's good one-on-one, Kudus. Statistically, he's the best at it in European football. In terms of dribbles completed, he's right up there. Now, in terms of possession lost, because he's been tackled, he's probably quite high as well, because the amount of times he tries it. But often in games, we'll see him take on 1, take on 2, and get tackled by the third. But if you put him up front, he's only got 1 centre-back. Suddenly it's a bit juicy. I think the benefit of Kudus up front means you leave Jarrod Bowen on the right hand side, in my opinion. I just think Jarrod Bowen's far better and far more of a threat out on that right hand side. Now Kudus so far at West Ham, I think, has shown his best football out on the right hand side as well. So you've got two players that want that position, or perhaps perform best in that position. So it's a case of what's the best combination for Lopetegui if Fullkrug is out for a considerable period of time. I think his solution might be Antonio. That's my guess. I think he might just stick with Antonio for a few games. But what's the alternative? What's the best one? Is it Kudus as striker and Bowen on the right, or Kudus on the right and Bowen up front? I think the first one would be more exciting because you get Kudus moved off that left hand side. The second one, there's not much evidence of Kudus working as a striker in the Premier League, but there's plenty of evidence that Bowen works as a right winger, and I think there's a decent amount of evidence that Bowen can work as a striker. So Lopetegui has options. I think had this happened last season, had we brought in Fullkrug last season, he got injured, it would, I say a disaster. It possibly would be. But we've also got Somerville this season. We've got Solar this season. So that there's more pieces, so that if Lopetegui does need to move things around, it's not like moving Kudus over. We've got a problem on the left now. Somerville can come in there. Paqueta can go out there and Solar comes into Paqueta's spot. So there's a lot of options for Lopetegui. So it could be bad news for Fullkrug, and I think it would become bad news for Tim Steidten indirectly. I'm not saying anybody's going to kick off at Steidten, but I just think he opted to go for Fullkrug over Duran, and I think a lot of people are struggling to accept that, and I understand why. I've said numerous times, Duran was my number one striker choice. I'm disappointed we missed out on him. However, we didn't go for him. Fullkrug's here, but I just think Tim needs a striker to work out. Really, I think this is his biggest signing personally. It might not be his best signing, but I think this is the one he has to get right. So it could be bad news for Fullkrug, bad news for Lopetegui, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I think we've got plenty of options within this squad. Now there is of course the other option, which is we bring somebody in, and that's what I'm going to discuss tonight. I'll be doing my podcast with Frankie today, and we're going to be taking a look at all the free agents that's available as a striker. We've done the centre backs. John Egan was the one that West Ham were expected to sign. Apparently we're not signing him now. Apparently it's unlikely we will sign a centre back, and that we are going to go with Caelan Casey as fourth choice. But that does mean that A, we've got a little bit of money there to sign somebody if we wanted, and B, we may need a striker, because I'm pretty sure if the assessment comes back and says he's out for 6 months, that might tempt Steidten and Lopetegui go, right, who's available on a free transfer? Is there anyone worthwhile getting in, or is it best to go with what we've got? That's what I'm going to discuss tonight with Frankie. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking the thumbs up, subscribing to Hammers Chat, and fingers crossed we get good news today in regards to Fullkrug, and it comes back that it's merely just a knock, a precaution, and he's going to be fine for Fulham. I hope so. I have to admit, I'm a bit worried. I'm a bit worried about this. I'm trying to stay calm. I've been calm all transfer window. During the start of the season, I've been calm, although I've not been happy with the performances. I've remained calm. This is maybe the first time I've got a little bit about this season. Catch you in a bit.